caravan of migrants snaking up through Central America. Trump claims there could be Middle Easterners and other criminals on their way to the United States. Here's a back and forth that he had with CNN correspondent Jim Acosta on how he knows this.
But among the people they've intercepted very recently are people from the Middle East. But they intercept.
That they're in the caravan.
Well, they could very well be.
But there's no proof.
There's no proof of anything. There's no proof of anything. But they could very well be. If you look at what that was building, you know, they were talking about 5,000 or 6,000 people. I'm pretty good at estimating crowd size, as you probably have figured out.
Jim, this issue was going to dominate the news cycle until the midterms, but then come the pipe bombs. You know, the GOP was using the caravan for their agenda. Will it be harder for them now?
Well, I think that's true of almost any news story that dominates the headlines. One week, the cycle moves so quickly now, you know, we might not be talking about it in another week. The anonymous New York Times op-ed might as well be the Dead Sea Scrolls at this point. It's such ancient history. Things move so quickly. But I think the caravan issue is a little bit important because it's Republicans who were less motivated and less enthusiastic about voting, not Democrats. I could see the pipe bombs having a bigger impact if Democrats weren't already energized, but I'm not sure they need the extra motivation. It's Republicans that need a little bit of extra motivation. The caravan is one issue, and I think the Supreme Court nomination battle was another issue that seems to be getting the Republican base a little bit fired up.
Okay, Carl, speaking of the caravan, David Frum from the Atlantic made some waves in his most recent article titled "The Caravan is a Challenge to the Integrity of U.S. Borders." He said, if liberals insist that only fascists will defend borders, then voters will hire fascists to do the job that liberals will not do. Is Frum touching on something liberal Democrats don't get, that they should also be interested in protecting borders, Carl?
I think that, you know, the caravan was a really coincidental opportunity for Trump to really get in on the issue that he thinks works for him, immigration. It gave him that opening. And I do think Democrats have struggled with it and how to respond to it. I've seen some Democrats now say, you know, we are not for letting just everyone come into the country. People who qualify for asylum will be able to come in. I do think they've had a hard time finding a good response to that. But what strikes me about all this is what happened to the tax cuts? What happened to the economic record that the Republicans had said they were going to run on this year? You know, it's totally nowhere. The market's having a bad week right now, too. That may affect the election. But this election has turned out to be totally on the president and totally on these big wedge issues that he has emphasized, you know, and immigration has been a good one. But to your point, I think that Democrats have had a hard time coming up with an appropriate response to this. Okay.
Now let's take a look at the president taking pride in labeling himself a nationalist, which his critics say is a dog whistle to Americans embracing a racist ideology.
You know, they have a word. It sort of became old-fashioned. It's called a nationalist. And I say, really, we're not supposed to use that word. You know what I am? I'm a nationalist, okay? I'm a nationalist. I'm proud of our country, and I am a nationalist. It's a word that hasn't been used too much. Some people use it, but I'm very proud. I think it should be brought back.
You know, Jason, a lot of people are now talking about definitions and comparing between nationalism and patriotism. Here's what Merriam-Webster is saying, of course. Definition of nationalism is loyalty and devotion to a nation, especially a sense of national consciousness, exalting one nation above all others, and placing primary emphasis on promotion of its culture and interest as opposed to those of other nations or supranational groups. And a very short definition of patriotism, love for or devotion to one's country. We just have a minute left, Jason. Does the president understand nationalism the same way that the dictionary does?
I think, I mean, boiled down, he probably does. And the reason he uses the word is because he feels like it fires up his supporters. And that very simple, you know, non-contextualized definition is what he responds to and what he feels his supporters respond to. So I think that, you know, he'll continue to use it as long as he thinks it works for him.
Okay, Jim, 20 seconds, same question to you. Does he understand it the same way?
I think so. Look, nationalism ought to be something that unites the country. The fact that it isn't, I think, speaks very much to the kind of political climate that produced President Trump in the first place.
Okay.